So get this, human remains that were found in the woods 5 years ago have finally been figured out who they belong to. Back in May 2020, someone found the skeleton of a person nobody knew in a wooded area on Overbrook Drive in South Knoxville, Tennessee. That's south of the Tennessee River, by the way. A bunch of police departments showed up, including the Knoxville Police Department. After they found the body, they took it to a special place called the Regional Forensic Center, where doctors who study dead bodies could look at it. At first, they figured out the remains were from a man who was somewhere between 55 and 70 years old, but they couldn't figure out how or why he died. The man was between 5 feet 5 inches and 5 feet 8 inches tall. He was found wearing a few pieces of clothing: windbreaker pants, dark dress pants, and a pair of Wrangler jeans. He also had a navy blue hoodie with a zipper, part of a glove with a John Deere logo on it, and a wallet with torn-up paper and a Big Lots logo. Police looked at tons of missing persons reports to see if anyone matched. Even though law enforcement investigators worked really hard to figure out who this man was, they couldn't find any matches, and the case went cold, which means nobody was working on it anymore. 4 years went by, and then the details of the case were put into something called the National Missing and Unidentified Person Database. The Knox County Regional Forensic Center sent some evidence to see if really advanced DNA testing could help them figure out who the man was. Scientists successfully got DNA from what they had, and then used super high-tech testing to build a complete DNA profile for the man. The scientists had a special team that works with family tree DNA stuff, and they used the profile to search for relatives and got new leads that they gave back to the police. The police did more investigating using this new information, and it led them to possible relatives of the man living in Michigan. Investigators from the Knox County Regional Forensic Center got in touch with those relatives, and the relatives said they hadn't seen the man in 22 years. DNA samples were taken from a relative and compared to the DNA profile of the mystery man using something called kin-SNP rapid relationship testing in August 2025. All this detective work led to figuring out for sure who the man was. His name is Gerald John Forsman. Gerald was originally from Livonia, Michigan, and it looks like he lived in Knoxville at some point. Nobody really knows when he went missing. He was born on February 27, 1958, which means he was probably around 45 years old when he disappeared. The special DNA family tree testing on this case was possible because U.S. Congressman Tim Burchett asked for money for it in 2024 through something called the Bureau of Justice Assistance. The Knox County Regional Forensic Center is really thankful to all the different groups that helped identify Gerald. Okay, so a suspect has been arrested in the cold case of a pregnant woman from Tacoma, Washington. Amanda Green was last seen near East 35th Street and Portland Avenue in Tacoma on June 2, 2021. 2 days later, on June 4th, some deputies from Thurston County got a call about a moving truck that had been abandoned on someone's property. The truck had been sitting there for over a week, and it turned out Amanda had rented it on May 23rd. Right before she disappeared, Amanda had told people she was pregnant. A family member filed a missing persons report on August 4th. The police didn't think anything bad had happened at first, so they just put her information into a missing person database. Later that month, the family member told a Tacoma detective that her daughter had been contacted by someone who had information about where Amanda was. The detective eventually talked to this person who was giving tips. She said a man named James Daniel Lewis had admitted to her that he shot and killed Amanda at a property in the Yelm area where he lived but didn't own. Lewis supposedly told this person that he shot Amanda because he thought she was stealing from him and planning to take over the property. He went on to tell this person that he wrapped her body in a carpet and buried her in a shallow grave about 200 meters away near Mount Rainier. In 2022, the Tacoma Police Department gave this information to Thurston County, telling them that Amanda had been killed in the Yelm area. Even though they figured out who they thought did it, the detectives didn't have enough evidence at first to arrest anyone, and the case went cold. Lieutenant Mike Brooks said, "The case sort of never went anywhere from there. We got some new detectives this year and started giving those cases that had stopped moving to them to get fresh eyes looking at them." After 3 years went by, in March 2025, the investigators talked to a witness who said that they were there when Amanda was killed and heard a gunshot after hearing her arguing with a man named James Daniel Lewis. According to court papers, the witness told the investigators that she walked past Amanda's body lying in the dirt outside the side door and said that she saw a hole in Amanda's head and there was blood. Another witness also told the investigators that Lewis admitted to waiting until Amanda was done doing yard work before he shot her in the back of the head. The witness told the investigators the reason for killing Amanda was supposedly because of an argument about some property, and Lewis later showed the witness the .44 revolver gun he used to shoot Amanda. Lewis and another man had thrown old drug needles on Amanda's body after she was shot so that if anyone found her, they would think she died from drugs. The U-Haul truck Amanda had rented was later found not far from the Yelm property where she was supposedly killed. When the detectives talked to Lewis, he first blamed someone else for the crime and said that he was only there when it happened and helped hide the victim's body. Lieutenant Brooks said Lewis actually went with investigators out towards Mount Rainier, where they found Ms. Green out in the woods on a hidden forest road. After taking the detectives to the shallow grave in Lewis County, where they found remains, including what might be a rib bone and skull, he eventually admitted to shooting and killing Amanda during an argument. Lewis also said that Amanda had been reaching for a gun, trying to make it sound like he had a good reason for shooting her. He told them that Amanda once made him take a shower because he smelled really bad. He supposedly said, "If you know me, I do not like taking showers." Finding this embarrassing, Lewis eventually agreed, according to what the investigators said, that he wanted any excuse to kill her. 37-year-old Lewis was arrested in September 2025 and put in the Thurston County Jail for second-degree murder, having a gun when he wasn't allowed to, and getting rid of human remains illegally, all connected to Amanda's disappearance. While the remains are believed to be Amanda Green's, they still need to confirm it for sure. Lieutenant Brooks said, "Helping bring closure to her family. That is what this does. It lets us find her, bring some peace to the family, and without Lewis's cooperation, we probably would have never found her." The prosecutors said that Lewis was already a convicted felon when he did this crime. He was previously convicted of degree inappropriate assault of a child in a 2015 Pierce County Superior Court case. He's currently facing charges for not registering, as he was supposed to in connection with the 2015 case. More recently, he was convicted of degree assault and having a gun illegally in a 2024 Thurston County Superior Court case. Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Emily Dawson asked the court to hold him without bail in a note to the judge. Dawson said that a second-degree murder charge, which is a Class A felony, can be punished with up to life in prison. The judge said yes to what the state asked for, and Lewis is being held in the Thurston County Jail without bail right now. Thurston County Sheriff Derek Sanders said, "Our thoughts are with the family and friends of Amanda, and we hope this helps bring some peace to their lives." So improvements in DNA testing led to a suspect getting arrested in a cold case from Curo, Texas. 26-year-old Valerie Laguna was 9 months pregnant when her badly beaten body was found in a cemetery in the small town of Curo in July 2005. She had been inappropriately assaulted, beaten, and strangled. She was last seen at a private house in the early morning hours of July 19th. Later that day, her body was found at the Cristo Rey Cemetery. The cause of death was being hit really hard in the head. The case went cold, but it stayed important to the county over the years. 13 years later, in 2018, the Texas Department of Public Safety said they would give a reward of up to $6,000 for information that would lead to an arrest, but unfortunately, nobody came forward with tips. Breakthrough in the case finally happened in August 2025, when advanced forensic testing let the officials connect a suspect to the crime. The Texas Department of Public Safety Crime Lab, the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification, and the Williamson County Sheriff's Office all helped with the investigation. The suspect was identified as 66-year-old Saul Gonzalez. He was arrested without any problems in Curo. He was charged by a LaSalle County grand jury on August 29th and has been charged with capital murder. Valerie and Gonzalez knew each other. How they knew each other isn't clear. Gonzalez is being held on a $1 million bail bond. Valerie's father didn't want to talk about the investigation or the arrest. In an interview, he said that his daughter had been a polite and respectful young woman who wanted to be a drug counselor. She had 3 daughters and was pregnant with her first son when she was killed. Sheriff Hector Ramirez said in a statement, "For 20 years, this community has carried the memory of a terrible loss. This arrest is a big step toward justice. More importantly, it's a moment for healing for the victim's family who have waited so long and for a community that has never forgotten." He continued, "This case has always been about more than just solving a crime. It has been about giving a voice to the victim, honoring her memory, and giving hope to her family. We know that nothing can erase the pain of the past, but we pray that this step forward brings comfort as we now move into the prosecution part." So human remains that were found in a rolled-up carpet in Plymouth Township, Michigan, have finally been identified after almost 3 decades of mystery. In May 1997, a skeleton was found in a field off of Hagerty Road near railroad tracks in Plymouth. The discovery was made in the suburb west of Detroit when a man who was interested in buying the property was doing a survey. The man said he came across a piece of rolled-up carpet that when he opened it showed human skeletal remains along with several pieces of clothing and jewelry. The police came to the scene and figured out that the carpet and remains had been there for many years. They did an autopsy, and the investigators figured out that the remains belonged to an adult man. They estimated that the man was about 5 feet 8 inches tall. The man's weight was unknown, but based on the size of shorts found on the body, the investigators thought that the man was skinny. They determined that the man probably died from a head injury and his death was ruled a murder. Over the years, the investigators followed leads hoping that the man could be identified, including trying to figure out where the gold ring found on the man's body came from, testing the clothing, and doing ballistics testing on a .357 bullet slug found with the remains. Even though they tried really hard, the case went cold. Almost 2 decades later, in 2015, regular DNA testing was done and uploaded to CODIS, hoping to get leads about who the man was, but there was no match to anyone they knew. Details of the case were put into the National Missing and Unidentified Person database. For decades, the investigators worked to identify the man, including asking the public for any information that could help. The case went cold for another 7 years until 2022, when the investigators with the Plymouth Township Police Department teamed up with a company to see if advanced DNA testing could help identify the mystery John Doe who had been unidentified for so long. Forensic evidence was sent to Othrem's laboratory, where DNA was taken from the skeleton. Using super high-tech DNA sequencing, they made a really detailed DNA profile. This DNA profile let Othrem scientists confirm that the unknown man's ancestry was African and not Caucasian. The DNA profile was then used for forensic matching, which let Othrem's special team that works with family tree DNA develop new leads about who the man was. These leads were given to law enforcement, who did more investigating that led to a possible relative of the man who gave a DNA sample. The possible relative's DNA profile was compared to the DNA profile made for the unknown man using Kin's SNP rapid relationship testing. This investigation led to identifying the man as Benjamin Harrison Fountain, who was born on May 6, 1926. Benjamin, who was drafted to serve in World War II, was born in Virginia and later lived in West Virginia and finally in Detroit. If he had been alive when his body was found, Benjamin would have been in his 70s. After the remains were found in 1997, they were kept at the Wayne County Medical Examiner's office. He was finally buried with his name on May 16, 2025, at Our Lady of Hope Cemetery in Brownstown, Michigan. An investigation into how he died continues. Family finally has some answers after human remains discovered 5 decades ago in an Arkansas field have been identified. On January 13, 1977, the partial skeletal remains of an unidentified person were found in Lee County, a rural area along the Mississippi River on the east side of Arkansas. Several law enforcement agencies came to the scene and started collecting evidence and investigating. The remains were figured out to belong to a man likely between the ages of 16 and 30 years old. He probably died between 1972 and 1977. Even with a long investigation, the man couldn't be identified and became known as Lee County John Doe 1977. The case went cold for many years. After 3 decades, in May 2009, details of the case were put into the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. Still, the case stayed cold. In 2024, another 15 years later, the Arkansas State Police sent forensic evidence to Othrem to see if advanced DNA testing could help identify the man. Othrem scientists successfully got DNA from what they had and then used super high-tech DNA sequencing to build a complete DNA profile for the man. Othrem's special team that works with family tree DNA used the profile to search for relatives and develop new investigative leads that were given back to law enforcement. On June 6, 2025, Othrem gave a report that tentatively identified the remains as Charles Howard Wallace and found 2 possible relatives living in Tennessee. In July, DNA was collected from one of the relatives, and on September 2nd, Othrem confirmed a positive identification of the remains as Charles Wallace, who would have been about 21 when the remains were found. Arkansas State Police officials said that the last contact his family had with him was in the fall of 1974 in Memphis, Tennessee. He was in his late teens when he disappeared and had been getting treatment at a halfway house in downtown Memphis. An investigation into how Charles died is ongoing.